Mr. Speaker, I was drawn to public service because I was curious about how the use and the abuse of power interacts and impacts ordinary people. Ours is a blessed society. We live in a society in which power is ordered through the free and democratic expression of our people, upon the indelible concept of the individual, and upon the liberties that are bestowed upon each and every citizen by their Creator. We live in a society in which our rights and our responsible exercise of said rights is a sacred inheritance, an inheritance paid by those who come before us in blood and treasure, through wars, through hard times, and throughout global change. Mr. Speaker, as you know, our country is an unabashed miracle in the midst of history. Our laws are drawn from both the English Magna Carta and the French Declaration of the Rights of Man. Our legacy draws from both reform and revolution. We chose a federation to reconcile the tensions between regions and people, religions and languages. We chose the sanctity of the ballot, of that reached the power of government could be limited by the people, so that power in Canada is granted to temporary leaders by the government and not concentrating the permanent ambitions of unaccountable government. And today, 150 years later, our federation remains a miracle in the midst of our history. We draw from these tensions of our legacy, aged and tempered through the experience of 1.5 centuries, and joined by generations of people who came to these shores to abandoned places where power was abused. Our geography has been an enduring gift. Surrounded by oceans and ice and a powerful democratic neighbour to the south, we have prospered. But today we are not immune to global disruption. Technology is changing every aspect of our lives, how we heal our sick, how our young and young at heart learn, how we communicate and do commerce, and how we harness and heal the earth. It is also providing platforms for vile hate, in which social media mobs manifest in mobs on the street, mobs that act as the judge, as jury, as executioner in our emerging cancel culture, mobs fueled by emotion, dispensing with democratic logic, mobs that diminish our democracy, our legislatures, our courts, and our constitutional character. It is in this context, Mr. Speaker, that Bill 21 is our test. Today's populism on the left and on the right is made even more disrupted by technological change. As a friend of mine has said, today's populism on the left is characterized by condescension and on the right by anger. We talk past each other and into our own ecosystems rather than engage each other with respect and empathy. In Quebec, Bill 21 is a manifestation of the powerful tensions between a nation and its religions, in which a national identity feels besieged by sectarian infiltration and in which curtailing religious freedoms are offered as a means to address those concerns. As we wrestle with those of who we are as a nation, as a federation, we turn to the institutions shaped by a 150-year-old democracy. Bill 21 is the modern representation of the eternal dialogue in which societies are power. And this bill will see its way through our courts, our due process, and be afforded appropriate reflection before final consideration. But I rise today to represent the view that we do not, as a country, as a federation and as a society, reconcile those kinds of tensions with laws like Bill 21, with court cases or hollow apologies. I think of Inspector Dylan Singh, the first RCMP officer to wear a turban and to have a beard, a trailblazer for Sikh Canadians. Inspector Dylan knew that Sikh women and men before him faced hate and outright racism. He explained that his forefathers endured the, quote, diluting of identity, where boys were taken straight from their place of landing to remove their turbans, shave their beards, that undermine their identity and their inherent dignity. He said, and I quote, "That was just so that they wouldn't be confronted by the shame, the bias, and racism," end quote. Speaker, this proud Canadian fought to uphold his right to his faith and heritage by practicing faith while concurrently defending his country, never wavering from his duty to country and his oath to Her Majesty the Queen. Faith and duty need not be incongruous from each other. La foi et le devoir ne devraient pas être
faith and power should not be incompatible.
Of our country, a nation that upholds religious freedom and stands up for the rule of law. Speaker, I think of Jews who wear the kippah, where Orthodox men would be denied from their customary requirement that their head be covered. The irony, of course, is that Quebec Jews would recall so vividly that the first Jewish parliamentarian in the British Empire was elected in Quebec in 1808, with the Jewish community having roots over 250 years in Quebec. Speaker, I think of Muslim women. They too have a customary and solemn duty of religious requirement to cover their head. I worked for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, who in 2014 decided to bestow honorary citizenship on Malala Yousafzai. I intended to meet her that day. However, it was regrettably cancelled due to the terrorist attack that was felt and reverberated across the land on Parliament Hill that day. We plan on honouring this innocent girl who was targeted by the Taliban simply because of her interest in women empowerment and because her objective to enrich the minds through education. This heroic woman, now a citizen of this country, the youngest Nobel Prize recipient and a Muslim who wears a hijab, would be, under this bill, not be able to teach in this country. An honorary citizen, a Nobel Prize laureate, a defender of human rights, and under this bill, even Malala would be denied her right to pursue her dreams of education and inspiring the next generation. For them, we unite more deeply as a country by building a civil society, not a society of silos. And in this bill, Mr. Speaker, I stand as Ontario's Minister of Education with those voices who insist that our society is best ordered by embracing pluralism. Not pluralism being used as a guise for moral relativism, but true pluralism in which we argue, we debate, and we do so energetically. True pluralism that allows for religious freedom in the hearts of all Canadians, all Quebecers, to turn away or to turn to God, whether at home or at work. True pluralism that draws upon the benefits of our Indigenous history and the histories of our new Canadians that bring with them. True pluralism that does the hard work of reconciliation, the heartbreak of Holocaust and Holodomor, genocides and pogroms, persecution and suppression. True pluralism, Mr. Speaker, in which Canadian school teachers are measured by the quality of their capacity to teach, not singled out for their faith or how they choose to express their faith. True pluralism, Mr. Speaker, that when a perilous world forsakes the security of our people, that our Canadian Sikhs, our Canadian Jews, our Canadian Muslims stand united to fight for our country and die for our nation. True pluralism, Mr. Speaker, that in our schools we bestow upon the next generation the inheritance of this history, an inheritance of an ordered liberty in which power rests with every citizen, in which government is limited by the people and not the other way around, and in which our social cohesion, every improved by our democratic dynamism, is strengthened by the very freedoms that animate them. Because, as Prime Minister Diefenbaker said many decades ago, and I quote, "I am a Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship in my own way, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, or free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and for all mankind." End quote. So let us speak with one voice to uphold the promise of this country, a nation of freedom, a land of opportunity, and a people of diversity. This is our country, strong, united, prosperous, and free. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.